Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a liquid motion effect. I've had several requests to do a tutorial on this, and one of the main reasons that I haven't is because I don't actually know how to make a liquid motion effect. I've never tried it before, but we're just going to jump into After Effects and I'm going to wing it basically, and hopefully we get the result we're after. So I've got a composition here. I figured for this tutorial we'd draw some text, so I'm just going to type L for liquid, plus it's an easy shape. I've got a pretty good idea of how to animate this, so I'm just going to show you on one letter and you can take it further from watching this tutorial. So first of all, once you've typed out your letter, if you select the layer down here, right click, you can click create shapes from text. What this is going to do is turn this into a path property. So we can come through here and we can control all of this, which is what we want. So I'm going to use the Mount Mo graph to get the center of the axis, and I'm just going to center it to the composition. I'm going to hit scale and just bring this up a little bit. Right, so basically what we want, my clicker's playing up, is some sort of motion to come down here from the top of the screen, which will draw this section of the L, and one to swipe in from the left to draw the bottom of the L in like a sort of fluid motion. So we're just going to start by masking off the L for the drawing. Actually, what I might do is toggle down to the path. Yeah, that will work quite nice. So what I'm going to do is duplicate the L, so we've got two. On the path here, I'm going to delete these points. With this one, I'm going to drag it down to the bottom, so we've got the first section. So we're going to call this L1. Is this the right name? Nope. Bottom layer is L1, sorry. And this one will be L2. And same again, we're going to delete the top and we're going to drag this one out to this boundary, like so. So now we've got the top, well, the sort of vertical line, and then the bottom horizontal line. Let's just make this a little bit more exciting than just grey. Let's go for this kind of green I like, which is sort of my brand colour. Why not? There we go. So next we're going to use the pen tool and we're just going to draw a line going over the shape. So it's coming down and over, like so. We're just going to remove the fill, so we don't need that. And I'm going to make this like a cool purple-y colour. That we do. They kind of work together. And we'll call this motion. I don't know why I called it motion. Who cares? Anyways, so what we're going to be doing is adding a trim path to the shape, starting them both at 0, and we'll come forward to, let's just zoom in here a little bit, say 112, and we're going to drag the ends to 100% and the start to 100%. Just going to select these layers, go to the graph editor, select them here, hit Easy Ease, which is this button here, and I'm just going to give the end a little bit more of a sort of, so it's going to come in really fast and have some like decay, at the end there. And then we're going to just select the end keyframes and we'll nudge these over. So we've got a nice bit of Oh, selected the wrong part. So in the middle we should get quite a large section of the stroke. So if we do a preview, when I have my recording software and everything running, it's very slow. Okay, that is very slow. Let's just drag these closer together and these closer together. Let's have a look at that again. That's still not great. Let's just try and get this timed out a bit better. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, it's kind of not what I want. I want a really quick sort of swipe down and slow decay. What I'm going to do is add in one more keyframe here onto both of them, select them, and whilst holding Command or Control, because I'm on PC, but Command Control, if you click it twice, you get a continuous Bezier keyframe. Why is my shift staying stuck on? What's going on here? Something's selected on. There we go. Right. So now we get this new keyframe, which we can, if we add some general ease into, we can then control, and the tangents are attached together. Oh, I hate this work. I need to try and fix that. So what we can do now is change this keyframes value. So at the start, we want this to be around the bottom of here. So mine's roughly 90, and then we can bring this forward and then stretch this one out, which is from 90 to 100. If we add the decay there, so we're dragging it out, and we're just going to smooth this keyframe out. If I try and zoom in a little bit more. So this handle is too long. If we drag this up, and we just want to try and make a nice smooth curve, that's looking pretty smooth. So we've got a really fast motion through here, and then it's going to begin to slow down and really slow down at the end. I think that's the motion I want. So I'm going to do the same to the end position. I'm just going to drag this handle right out, move this one closer to the start, crush this one in whilst dragging it up. I think I've dragged that one out too much. So I've never really explained how I'm in the speed graph right now, how it works. So I think the bottom line is considered 0, so this is when there is no motion. So the higher up you get is more motion, and the tighter this section is between the frames is how fast it's moving. So from here we've gone from no motion to a lot of movement in a short period of time, which spikes the graph up, and now we're going from A to B, which is actually only in percentage 30% here, so from 70 to 100 over the course of, say, roughly 3 times this space. So we get this very slow downward hill sort of thing. So when you select these frames, if you pull this handle, it stretches this section of the graph, and if you pull this one, it also affects this section of the graph. So what we can do is try to smooth this out so we get a nice looking curve, and it was looking better there. And if I select this bit, I can smooth this section out, drag it down like so, and we got quite a nice curve going on there. So we hit N here quickly. I'll just click preview, see what that looks like. Now that was the sort of motion I had in mind, but we need that extra keyframe added in there to really sell it. So that's looking pretty cool. There you go, you got a bit of bonus tips there on somewhat how to use the speed graph. I might cover that in a little bit more detail on an individual tutorial at some stage, because I know it's really kind of difficult to get your head around at first. It took me a while to get it. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate this. So now we've got motion 2, and what we can do is just toggle down, find the path. We're going to just move this one over here, and we'll just move this one over here. So now, because we've got the animated keyframes, if we hit render now, we've got the motion coming through both ways. But ideally we don't want them to happen at the same time, so we're just going to drag this whole layer over slightly. And what would be great is as soon as this section gets to the bottom, this frame here, we then have this one begin to come in as well. Actually no, that's going to be too quick. Let's just knock it forward. So we're going to do, that's going to be our general motion, and I'm just going to select this layer, move it up slightly. That's cool. I'm just going to move it over a bit as well. So we got these swiping motions going through our letter. I'm just going to do a quick safety save in case this somehow crashes on my desktop, and I'll just call this LQ for liquid motion. For liquid, sorry. And I'm still getting this bloody OneDrive popping up. Go away. Right. So now we're going to basically make these texts look like they're revealing in a sort of liquidy fashion as well. So we'll start off the top one. We're going to toggle down to the path. So what we basically want is this section of the path to draw downwards with the stroke. So, but to make it look more liquidly, we're going to get the Add Vertex tool, zoom in on this section, and we're just going to add a shit ton of nodes, like so. And then what we're going to do is hit V for our selection tool, and we're just going to drag every other one down slightly. No, sorry, I'm getting ahead of the game here. Before we do that, we're going to quickly duplicate both of these. We're going to pre-compose it and just call it L. So what this is going to be is our I can't think of my words today. We're going to use this to mask off any overlapping shapes that we'll eventually end with from doing this part of the video. So obviously when we drag these nodes down, we want it to remain within the shape of the L. So by making the pre-comp, we can basically use it as an alpha mat to cut off any of these overhangs. So we're just going to drag these out like so. All of these we're just going to drag down a little bit, add some variation to here as well. I've done the wrong one there. So we're just going to make these spikes basically, and then we're going to come up to the Convert Vertex tool, and we're just going to drag these out to get this kind of like gooey look. And you can just drag these in any direction you see fit. Like so. I'm not going to do the two outside ones because I want to kind of keep that sort of parallel. Maybe we'll just add a little bit more variation to this. And then we're going to hit a keyframe, drag that forward, and then we're going to make a new keyframe, drag these all the way to the top, and we're just going to do the opposite. Invert all these gooey goodness. So then what's going to happen is they're going to sort of create this spilling effect. If I solo this layer, sort of spilling down. I'm not liking that overlap actually. That's because we inverted the keyframes. Maybe we won't invert them. Sorry. Let's just do this again. We're not going to invert them, but we are going to make them shorter. Now obviously I'm trying to do this as quick as possible so you can spend longer on your goo. Maybe we'll make some longer and some shorter. We basically just want to capture a little bit of motion in this path as it's travelling down the shape. So that's looking pretty cool. Maybe we'll extend this out to 10 frames and I'm just going to use the MoGraph easing to speed up the tutorial a little bit. So now we've got this kind of goo flowing down, and then if we rename this we can just call this mask, and we can duplicate it, and on this shape use it as an alpha matte. So what this is going to do is chop it off so it ends at the top there. Now obviously we've got a little bit of a gap at the top, so if we just select our first keyframe of the path, and we're just going to nudge that up so we can't see it yet. So now we've got this goo sliding down so now we need to slide this across so it starts to reveal when our flash of colour at the top here draws it on. So now we've got this flash coming down drawing the goo. So we've got this shape going, and we need to do the same for the other L. So this is just repeating the same process as what I did just now, but we're drawing it from this end to this end. So again, I'm going to add some vertices. Is it vertices or vertex? I can't remember what they're called. Just a shit ton of those. And we're going to pull out every other vertex like so. We're just going to smooth these out so we've got these gooey shapes. Something like this. Smashing. So now we're going to come forward a frame, hit the keyframe, drag these over here, and we're just going to drag the whole thing over slightly so we don't get that line of pixel that we had on the other one. And we're just going to shorten some of these, stretch out some of the other ones, just so we get a nice little bit of movement within the animation as it draws across. So we're just going to hit U now, unsolo this, and we'll find out when we want it to start. So I think about here would be a good place for it to start drawing on, and we get to the end of the L around here. Just add a little bit of MoGraph easing, alpha matte. So now we can see that needs to end a bit sooner. Let's do a quick preview. So we kind of got this drawing on liquid effect, and obviously you're thinking that's not very good. That's because that isn't very good. So what we're going to do is jam it up a little bit. by adding, yeah, roughen edge was actually what I wanted. A roughen edges. So what this is going to do is give it a bit more texture. So which layer did I just add that to? This one. If we just solder this, this gives the goo a little bit more of a natural sort of hand-drawn feel. We bring the border back a little bit because we've got some quite tight shapes, so if we have the border cranked right up, we get this horrible blur which we don't want. So 5 pixels is probably enough, which will give us a bit more cut. The scale is how big the roughness is, which I think we don't need a massive one, so I'm going to go for like 60, I think. And then we start to get these interesting overlaps, and obviously here it divides it up a little bit, which is pretty nice. So what we want to do is keyframe these functions, so the border, the edge sharpness, the influence, and the scale. And then we're going to hit U twice so we get the new keyframes, and we're just going to drag it out to past the animation, and all of these properties we're going to zero out like so. So we end with our crisp part of the L, but it just gives a little bit more character to the liquid effect. Plays with the edges a little bit, and we can take this further again by adding on a Turbulent Displace, if I can spell. And what this is going to do, okay, it's not letting me, just double click to add it, let's drag it on, is give it a bit of motion inside of the path drawn. So as you can see, that's not what we want, so we're going to play with these settings a bit. 50 might be a bit too much, so this is kind of like how much it moves it from the shape. Actually no, I've put that on the wrong layer, so we're going to delete that, because this is masked to the mask, which is this shape. By putting the Turbulent Displace on this, it doesn't really work very well because it's confined with these sharp edges, so even if it goes over these edges, it's not going to show up. So what we're actually going to do is add the Turbulent Displace to the mask. I believe that should give us what we're after. So if I turn just this layer on, we start to get this wobbled mask, and we'll bring the amount to about 20, the size. Okay, this isn't working as well as I hoped it was going to. Let's just have a quick test. How does that look? And we could add a little bit of evolution, which will be with an expression. So if we write time times 100, this will give the Turbulent Displace some motion. Maybe that is working, maybe not. Alright, let's scrap that bit. This is a great tutorial. I really should plan these out more. Right, okay. We're going to leave that as is for now with the roughen edge. Maybe we could add, let's just try a simple choker real quick. That should tighten up our edges a little bit, which might look quite nice. So that's interesting. So by tightening it up a little bit, we get these little like nodes of almost like liquid that are shooting ahead of the initial drag. So we could, I quite like that actually. Let's maybe turn it down a little bit there. So if we put this up to 6, and maybe we'll bring the border in a little bit more. Okay, that's not working. Alright, we'll half that, we'll go to 3. And we'll keyframe this as well. So what we want to do is the choke needs to go back to 0 when the rest does. So we've got our liquid going across and filling up the shape. So what we can do is copy these, Command C, and we can apply it to our other mask, which is this one here. And that should hopefully have copied the keyframes as well. Yep. So then we're just going to drag these ones out to match this timing. Now we've got the liquid drawing in both directions. And if we zoom out, and obviously you can't see it too much at the minute because we haven't done anything with these draw on lines, but we're going to play with this now. But first of all, we're just going to select the masks and the individual lines for the L, and we're just going to pre-compose this and just call it L. Okay, maybe we've already got something called L. We're just going to call it L pre-comp for now, so we know the difference. We can lock that there. So now on these lines we're going to add the simple choker, the Turbulent Displace, and the roughen edge. So now we get this horrible line. Why is that popping up? No, go away. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the size of the displace to maybe 250, which will give it some nice movement. The amount, no, actually let's check the size up huge. Let's just turn the roughen edges off first. Let's see what we're doing here. So we're just going to play with these numbers till we get something we like. Maybe the size down at 100 and the amount, crank this up. There we go, that's kind of what I wanted. So this is obviously distorting our line. So now we're getting this kind of wavy shape. And I think I'm going to increase the thickness of our lines. I'm just going to go to 70 on these. Okay, so I'm going to go 150, I think. It's kind of giving us this interesting wobbly shape. I'm going to turn the roughen edges on, which is, you can turn off effects by clicking this little FX button here, which is pretty handy. So we're going to crank the border to about 20, and the scale, we're going to knock this right up to about 350. So now this gives our shape this kind of wobbly, hand-drawn-y sort of look. And the simple choker, we're just going to tighten it up a little bit. So we put 15 on there. I want a bit more turbulence in this. And my telephone is ringing. Let's ignore that for now. And here we might add some evolution. The expression I was writing out earlier, which will give our shape some extra wobble. Let's have a look. Oh no, that is not working at all. Let's turn that off. There we go. But that's looking pretty cool. I maybe want to crank this border. There we go. So if I crank the border to on the edge of this sharpness to about 60. Then we get these horrible sort of lines and sort of emergy pixel look. So if we crank the choker, this should smooth it out again. There's a way to turn the sharpness up as well. There we go. So if we crank the sharpness to, I'm going to go to 8, and then with the choke, we can bring that down to maybe 20. Now we've got this kind of more wobbly line look, which is what I was trying to create. So now that's going to come in all wobbly and draw on our shape. Now actually that's affected our motion path a little bit, so I'm just going to drag this down a little bit so it goes right over the shape like we wanted. This whole process is sort of trial and error, but that's getting a bit nicer. So what we're going to do is just copy all of these settings and we'll paste it onto the other path. Ooh, and that's working horribly on this path. So we're going to adjust some of these. The border might be too much on this path for some reason. Sorry, it's because we increased the stroke width. So if I just increase this to 70 as well, then we should get the desired effect. Looks like the border could do with being tighter on this one. Again, like I said, it's a bit of trial and error. So we kind of get this cool scribbled on drawy look, which is pretty cool. And then we've got the text drawing on underneath, and what we're going to do is, I feel this probably needs to happen a bit slower now. Okay, so this is pretty rough. What we can start to do now is pre-compose the strokes, and we can see if we can make this look a bit cooler by adding extra fills. Maybe we'll select the green here. So I basically pre-composed the strokes, put it underneath, grabbing the green. I'm just going to make it like a bit darker. The top layer, we're going to nudge forward 1 frame. So now we've got this green drawn on first, followed by the purple. Maybe I want it the other way around actually. So we got the purple getting chased by the dark green. Maybe this dark green would just make the same colour. That's quite cool. I'm going to push it back 2 frames. And we're going to do the same for the pre-comp. We can copy the fill onto the bottom layer, and we're actually going to select this purple. So then we got this kind of gooey effects happening twice, which gives it a bit more of an interesting character. I think these can get delayed a little bit more, so we see them swipe past and draw it on. That looks a bit better in my opinion. Something like that. These lines could be too thick still, so let's just maybe jump into the pre-comp whack these down to, let's try 50. That's just completely broken. Alright. Like I said, it's a trial and error, because when you change numbers of the width, it affects all these kind of effects, so you need to keep modifying it to get the results you're after. But I'm just trying to show you how I would make this process, but this isn't really my type of animation, but you get the idea from this, and I'm hoping this will lead you to be able to go ahead and create some sort of liquidy type stuff that you're interested in doing. And obviously you could add more to this, so we could have, when this hits the bottom here, we could add some more lines coming out, which would be thinner. And if we were to just select all of these, copy and paste them onto this new line, so this could be like some sort of secondary motion accents going on. So we're going to have to bring these borders in tighter because we've got a thinner line. So we go to like 10, something like that. Looks pretty sweet. And then we'll add a trim path to this as well. So maybe once this hits the bottom, we can start this animation, and we'll come forward 10 frames, 100% those out, add some ease. Obviously if you add more interesting easing, like I did on the initial shapes flowing down, you'll get better results as well, but I don't want to waste too much time on easings. Oh sorry, yeah, I need to delay these so we actually see this shape drawing out, so we can have like sort of splashes coming off of the effect when it hit. Actually this one would be better with a tight ease at the start and a decay at the end, so it's like an impact. Yeah. This shape's being thrown out when it hits the bottom, so that's sort of the bottom, so we want to see this shape about there. So then we got this splash motion coming out. Maybe even stretch that out a bit more. And start it about here. That doesn't look too amazing. Let's drop these down a bit more to 10 and 5. Let's try that. Oh, that looks terrible. Like I said, numbers game, just gotta keep playing around until you get something you think looks cool. Let's try increasing the amount. That might give it a bit more wiggle, which I was hoping for. It's looking a bit better. Anyways, you get the idea. You need to play with the numbers to find something you like. And then with this accent, we could duplicate it, change the path so we get a few of these splashes coming out, duplicate it again, change the color of some of these to green, or if it selects it. Why is that not selected? There we go. So then we've got multiple splashes hitting as it hits the bottom, which works quite nicely when we get the impact of both the shapes coming together almost. I still like the effect I've got going on these ones. I'd like to ideally make it a bit more rough like those, but again, it depends on what style you're going for. So now when we click play, it's pretty interesting. We could select the green one and the purple one, duplicate these again. Just going to colour them a different colour so I know these are for the end. Toggle it down. Change the path of these to be thrown this way. Like so. We'll hit U, just drag these out over here a little bit. And there we go, we got a bit. This might have been causing this problem. Let's turn that to 0. That makes a bit better on these shapes because it was making it stretch it to the sort of right as opposed to straight up. So now we're getting the nicer looking shapes there. Let's preview that again. I'm going to shorten these ones like so, something like that. And just bring them forward slightly. But yeah, you get the idea. I'm going to add some, the more you add to this effect and the more you control your layers, like they look a bit too fat for my liking, the better results you're going to get. But I don't want to waste too much time trying to play with numbers to get it to work. I just wanted to show you how you can go about doing it. And of course you could apply this to different things. So if I make a new composition quickly, I'm going to just show you a really quick example now. But you could make a rectangle which would be filled solid with no strokes. Make it the size of your comp. On the scale, we'll make it 50% and align it to the edge. We could duplicate this, put it to the other edge. Actually no, that doesn't work because of the stupid, for some reason After Effects you can come here and convert the paths to Bezier, which is really useful because then we can come in here, well you'd think we can, add all the points like we did earlier. I'm only going to do a few because I know this doesn't work, but I'm going to show you this weird glitch. So say we drag these out and this is what we wanted on this frame. We wanted it to be a 2-second transition to the end. I have just been proven wrong. Okay, this never used to work. For some reason there was never a transition state between the shape paths when you converted them to Bezier from a rectangle. Sorry, maybe it's only a Mac glitch because I'm using my PC right now. Anyways, okay, so this does work. So again, we can add in all these notches, buenos notches, which is good night. Again, stretch them out. I don't want to spend loads on this, but do the same as what we just did. Create these gooey shapes. Stretch a few right out, make a few tight. That will do. Click the path, come forward 20 frames, drag them out here, and we're going to stretch them all a bit. So I'm going to delete that shape. We're going to just edit the keyframes. So we got this slow to fast, and then what we're going to do is make a new null in the center, duplicate that, parent it to this. In the scale of this null, we're going to add this to -100. I didn't press negative. What did I press? I pressed 0. -100, which will flip it. And then we got this cool like gooey liquidy rip effect. So obviously, and it might look better as well if we made this -100, -100. This Mac keyboard is really small, I'm not used to it. But you get the idea. You can apply it to different things to get different looks, and then you could chuck in all the magic we did here with the simple chokers and stuff. You always get this issue with After Effects where if you put effects on it, it restricts it to it will always cut in before the edge of the comp. So with this one, with our effect here, we get this interesting look going on, which is pretty sweet. But if you intend to have this full screen, you'd have to then drop this into a new composition. Dragging the wrong one. And then just scaling it up slightly so you get the edges. I'm not really sure why After Effects does that, but it does. And there we go, you get this kind of gooey rip, liquidy style. So you can apply it to rips, transitions, wipes. I don't really know what else you do it for, but yeah, so you can use basically you're having a line come on, which is the paint stroke, which then does this mask reveal, and you can apply that to anything you want really. A really good example actually was walk more, drive less, which if I type on dribble, this was like the only time. That's what I'm looking for. Is it by Claudio? Of course it's by Claudio. This is the only time I was really keen to maybe do liquid motion, because that looks really cool. And he's probably just done clever shapes which are then masking and sort of warping, turning into multiple lines which are on like a curve motion back into this foot shape. And the beauty in this one is in the timing, because it flows perfectly into that first foot landing off the floor, and it's just a really nice GIF. And obviously to do things like this, the technique isn't much different to what I just showed you. It's just having nice timing and putting more hours into it basically. So he's got so many shapes he's controlling, and he's used it to reveal a pre-comp of simple animated shape layers and stuff. He may have done this differently, but this is how I think he's done it, and it's a really nice effect. So you can do nice stuff with liquid motion. The tutorial I've done today probably isn't the best because it's not what I do, but I hope this gives you an idea of how to do liquid motion, and if it's something you want to take forward, hopefully these effects and the sort of ideas I've showed you here will help you get a little bit further with this. Don't need to update. But yeah, that's all for today, folks. I hope this helps you in some way or another. If you've liked what you've seen, follow, subscribe, do all that shabazz. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Cheers.